Oh, there it goes. Okay. The screen froze when I went live, so I wasn't sure what was going on. I was like, what just happened? And it didn't move for a moment. And I was like, that doesn't look right. So, for a second, I was thinking my internet was going to tell me we weren't going live tonight. So, I don't know. I just watched I just watched the light go from red to green to yellow. So I don't know what the connection is going to be like tonight, but we'll see, I suppose. Hi, how are you guys? Do y'all hear that? Pond! I can hear Pond screaming. I don't know what the... It's because Dave's not here. Jeez. I don't know what we're gonna do. Because she's been screaming like that for a while. Because first I left to go to my mother's. So I'm presuming she probably screamed a lot while I was gone. And then immediately when I got back, Dave went to his mother's. So now he's gone and she's been wailing by the back door. So he went to visit his mom. He should be back today. Don't know particularly what time. He said afternoon. It's definitely afternoon. So I don't know what time he's planning on being back. Oh, crazy. Hi, Pond. Yeah, come in here. It's fine. Please don't knock the ring light over. No, yeah. No, don't touch that. Here, Pond, come here. Don't. I was on the For You page. The For You page or your following page? I would believe the following page. Pond. Pond. Come here. Say hello to your adoring public. Come on. Come on. They love you. Come on. No, don't play with that. Jesus fuck. No. Pond. Pond. Come on. Over here. Yeah, with me, not on the ring light. Come on. Come up here. You can come up here. Thank you. Jeez. A little confused today. Oh, hello. Oh, yes. I tried to get her dressed for the occasion in one of her new bows, and thank you very much, Swiftblood. She's got a whole wardrobe, but she seems pretty attached to that one. I tried to get it off of her earlier, and she snapped at me, and she doesn't normally snap at me, and I don't know if because she's in a mood, because Dave's gone, and I was gone for a few days, but she was not having it, so I did not get her bow changed. Oh, thank you for all the roses. I appreciate it. Ooh. Yes, hello. She's all over the place right now, so I don't know if she's in a weird headspace, but I think she just doesn't like change. That's my cup. Please don't knock that over. I would really appreciate it if you did not. Yeah. How about we lay down? How about we lay down nice and calm on the pillow right there? In fact, that's fine. Or on my lap is fine. Maybe don't knock over hot coffee. Just got a snow day off work. Oh yeah, that's awesome. I have water over here and coffee. I've had plenty of water today. Pretty much just been alternating between the two. Hi. She's very affectionate right now. And she keeps trying to rub all over everything. Yes, yes. You want to say hi? Say hi. Okay. I won't hold you up no more. She's in a weird mood. You gotta bear with her. Yeah, you can lay down right there. Ow. Directly on the ankles is not the best place to make biscuits. It's not got a lot, like a whole lot of space to make biscuits. Just dug her finger. You just dug your nails right and. Okay. Aww. That's so cute. Sue can hear you. Did you know that? People can hear you purr into this mic. You have very loud purrs. That is right on my thigh. Now that's my shin. That is the wrong leg. How long are you gonna do that for before you calm down? Okay, I'm sorry. That's none of my business. Clearly she looked up at me just like, don't talk to me right now. I was like, okay. She's doing her business. She's doing her thing. I'm gonna try and not concentrate on it. Everybody's happy to see you, Pond. You have a lot of people who like you a lot on the internet. Ow, that was my sock. I did. I disturbed her process. She's a whole procedure she's got to get through, and I am just holding her up clearly. This is her show. This is the Pond show. Pond's gonna read you a bedtime story now. Pond's looking at me like, nuh-uh. Hello, Xavier. Good to see you. It's okay. I'll leave you to your artistic process, Pond. You don't have to read if you don't want to. Now that's the mic cord. Now that is the mic cord. And we don't wanna claw that. Can I have that? Can I have that before you do something to the equipment? Thank you. Just gonna relocate that. Currently in pain. That was right on the bone. I don't know what you're... My cat is clawing the shit out of my leg right now. I hope you're having fun. You getting all those biscuit orders in? Okay. Oh no, Lady Eva. It's an accident. Accidents happen. You know what? And you know, and when you get the Amazon box, if you throw the box immediately away, it's like nothing was purchased. Almost. Sort of. This isn't me validating anything. Good Pond. Good Pond. Ooh, how are you all doing? I don't believe I got a good enough answer for that. Y'all want to check in? Oh, is this coming to me? I thought you just... Ow! Thank you very much. That is on the wrong spot on the leg, please. Oh, is it really hot where you are? You talked to your father today. Hopefully that went well. Everything is shit. Pond is clawing the fuck out of my leg, so if you see me wincing, that's what it is. But she is very much upset that I was away for a few days, and now Dave's away. I'm sure when Dave gets back, she's gonna claw the crap out of him, too. You can have some of my snow. Oh, geez. 73 with the sun down? That's a bit much. Aw. How old was the live? I accidentally opened up one of the older files the other day while I was trying to edit something, and it started playing immediately, and I was like, what the hell is this? And then I realized it was me. And I was like, oh no, we're not gonna dive into all that. So I'm gonna leave those lives up for it, because clearly people enjoy them, but I cannot rewatch or re-listen to my voice at all. Yes, I have to upload it. I have it on the computer. I gotta upload it to the YouTube. I'm probably gonna try and do that here tonight or tomorrow. Ooh, yeah. That's one of the things. I don't like people. I like conventions, but pretty much the only thing I'm going for is like a lot of the art stuff. Like I'll go to like Artist Alley and stuff like that, but I don't go to meet people. I don't really want to meet any of the voice actors. I love the show. I don't want to know you personally. I prefer to not even know what you look like. That is a great plan, and a lot of the time when I would go to cons, I was going with people that I knew that I had gone along with, so I just sort of followed them around, which was a lot of the time a huge mistake. And I would often get taken to panels and stuff I didn't care about and sit through stuff I didn't want to do. And I've sort of came to the conclusion that if I went to a con, it would pretty much be a waste of a con badge. I would sleep in my hotel room and then get up really early, or probably not even go to sleep, and then just go really early to the Artist Alley and then clear out the place and then go back to my hotel room and try and fall back asleep. What? Wait, did they nerf Artist Alley? I did not know that. Then again, I haven't been into a con. I think the last one I went to was 2015. That is the last time I went to a con, but I used to end up going with a bunch of like people that I knew at the time who ran a lot of guest relations, so they like worked there. So like I would like follow around my friends who worked there to the point where I would often get associated and people thought that I worked there. And I would not. and I did not know anything. And so they'd ask me like questions and stuff, and people like I was like, "Oh no!" And it's because I'm sitting in a chair by the staff, and it would all get very complicated. And after meeting, and I met a lot of voice actors that way. And I realized after like meeting a lot of voice actors, because I used to want to do those things. I used to want to meet like the voices of my favorite characters and get stuff signed. And after meeting them after a few times, like not just like meeting them for like a minute while you get something signed, I mean going to parties and hanging out with them for hours, and sometimes uh, getting inebriated with them. That not all of them are great. And if you've ever heard the phrase "don't meet your heroes," some of them are great. Some of them I still really like, and that if I ran into, I'd say hi and like I'd be glad to see them. Can't even guarantee they'd remember who I am, especially because I've changed a lot. But there's some of them that the experience wasn't great, so like a lot of the draw for me got removed. I don't want to go see a panel with 75 people sitting in the same room. Especially when you go to a 24/7 con. Like, I don't know if you all, I think it was Ohio Con or Matsuri Con, were 24 hours long. So there will be people there who would not get hotel rooms. Like they were just like, we're just gonna load up on energy drinks and stay, but you don't bathe. But then you don't bathe. There used to be like stuff in the itinerary, like, the booklet that they hand you that's got all the panels and stuff. There used to be stuff in there that's like, remember to take a shower. Nobody wants to constantly have to engineer where they are standing upwind of you. Please bring deodorant. Like, it was bad. And so like you get people who are like, I don't even need a hotel room. I'm going to stay up the entire time, and it's terrible. I did go. Who knows? We probably passed right by each other and didn't know it. But I went to OhioCon, about SuriCon. I went to OMGCon. I don't even think OMGCon's around anymore. OMGCon was really small. And if I'm gonna go to a con, I'd prefer it to be a smaller con at this point. They don't generate as much revenue, which is really hard to keep them afloat in the off season. But it's so much easier. It's so much easier to navigate. It's way easier to get in places. It's a lot easier to like avoid people. Like, but if you go to a really big con, there's not really escaping a crowd unless you go when, everything's cleared out. Or you go really early. SugeraCon, PatriotCon. See, like, I'd just go to a cheaper con if I'm going to go anyplace. I assume the cheaper and the smaller, the better. Which, I'm just not the average anime fan. I don't want to go to all that. Yeah, nah, just cons are a lot of anxiety for me. Because after run-ins at cons and stuff, one, I'm not super friendly if you meet me in person. And so a lot of people, their primary goal is to like meet other people and like take pictures with cosplayers and like, find friends. And I was just there for the stuff. I was there for the stuff. So I was like, I get confused as to why people were talking to me. I used to have, I still have it. Why did I say used to have? I still have it. It's someplace. I used to have a fully knitted yukata, and people used to ask to take pictures. I was like, I'm not from anything. I was just really confused. And they were like, no, it's really cool that you made that. And I'm like, no, it's not. Just negate everything and walk away. Do not agree to pictures. I would be the worst at a con. So, thank God I never went in cosplay. I would always talk about doing it, and then when the time came, I was like, no, I can't go in cosplay. I can't show up there, and no. And I would get a whole lot of anxiety about it, and then I wouldn't do it. But Anime Ohio, they only had half the venue open. It was so packed. Oof. I don't like packed places filled with people. They're just not for me. Just not for me. No flack to people who do it, because I'll send Nodi with like a bunch of money, and I'm like, get me anything cool that you think I would like. Like, I don't even specify what it would be. I'm just like, you know what I watch, you know what I like, take this money, get me things. And that is my ideal con experience, is to not go and to send someone with a wad of cash. Oh, I'm sure. The pandemic, because I remember, like, they were talking about doing a lot of cons, like, online, and a lot of stuff has just changed socially since when I went to cons. I can't even imagine what they're like now. It seems like a whole different beast at this point. And, like, after post-pandemic, you know, people were illing to go to any event at all. Like, people were just like, I'm gonna go to this concert and this thing and then this con and then this show, and I'm like, you didn't appreciate getting all that time at home. You don't want to stay home. I want to stay home. See, I will go any normal place in public. Like, and I have on a Tuesday, like, been like, I'm gonna go pick up food before I go live. And, like, I'll go get food. I'll go out to, like, get stuff. I don't go that many places. But, like, I've been out in normal places with cosplay, because I know at that point, I'm like, I'm just gonna run in, get this thing, and leave. But if I just spend an extended amount of time in a place, see, that's the thing, is like, I'm used to being looked at like a weirdo. I don't care if people look at me like I'm fucking weird. If I'm walking around in a purple wig and someone's glaring at me, that's not going to make a difference. Now, if anybody tells me that they like the cosplay, or they know what I'm from, or they compliment me, I'm out. I'm out of that Barnes & Noble so fast. We cannot. I must leave immediately. I'm just like, thanks. And then I dip. And I know that's how I respond, because someone did do that to me one time. I went to a Barnes & Noble in my Shinzo cosplay, and then someone was like, I love your Shinzo cosplay. And I was like, thanks. And then I immediately took whatever I was holding to the register and left, so that I did not have to encounter that person again. Cosplayer mentality has changed completely. I bet. There's been a lot of, like, I don't think really anybody appreciated. I have a theory on this, but I will go into a deep dive on it later, because I'm here to read you a bedtime story, and now that Pond's not clawing the shit out of my leg, thank you, Pond. I think she got it all out of her system. Good Pond. I'm going to read you a bedtime story. So that's what this live is about. It's not just chit-chat time. You came here for a reason. You want to hear a story. I'm ready to read it. She did. She's all caught up. Good job, Pond. I knew you could do it. I knew you had it in you. So, if you don't know, this is a book club. We meet here every Tuesday. Normally we get started a little earlier than this. We kind of got off topic. But we're reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children right now. We are kind of getting to the point where if you weren't here from the beginning, you might want to check out the YouTube because it's going to get really confusing. But we're on chapter 7 at this point. So my YouTube is linked in my TikTok. If you haven't seen it, you can go check it out there. I still need to update from last week, but I plan on doing that here today or tomorrow. And at this point, if you don't know what's going on, Jacob sort of starts finding out what's going down. He enters Miss Peregrine's loop, which is a loop in a segmented piece of time that just repeats the same day over and over. He finds all the children his grandfather told him about when he was younger that he believed were fairy tales are in fact real and are stuck in a time stasis where they don't age and they are essentially the same age as they were on September 3rd. And now that he knows, he's gone back to the present, but he really wants to go back. And so we're gonna pick up where we left off. And all of them are peculiar, and if you don't know what that means, figure it out. I don't know, you'll get it. But yeah, who is ready to get going? Are you ready, Pond? Are you sure you're caught up on all your biscuits? My leg is tore up. 2. Excellent. Okay. 2 for you too, Pond? 2? Yeah. Chapter 7. Morning brought rain and wind and fog, pessimistic weather that made it hard to believe the previous day had been anything more than a strange and wonderful dream. I wolfed down my breakfast and told my dad I was going out. He looked at me like I was nuts. In this? To do what? To hang out with... I started without thinking. Then, to cover my tracks, I pretended to have a piece of food stuck in my throat. But it was too late. He'd heard me. Hang out with who? Not those rapper hoodlums, I hope. The only way out of this hole was to dig deeper. No, you've probably never seen them. They live on the other side of the island, and really, I didn't think anyone lived over there. Yeah, well, just a few people, like sheep tenders and whatnot. Anyway, they're cool. They watch my back while I'm at the house. Friends and safety. 2 things my dad couldn't possibly object to. I want to meet them, he said, trying to look stern. He often put on this face, an imitation of the sensible, no-nonsense dad I think he aspired to be. Sure thing. We're meeting up over there, though, so another time? He nodded and took another bite of his breakfast. Be back by dinner, he said. Roger Wilco, Dad. I practically raced to the bog, and as I picked my way through its shifting muck, trying to remember the route of semi-invisible grass islands Emma had used to cross it, I worried that all I would find on the other side was more rain and a ruined house. So it was with great relief that I emerged from the cairn to find September 3rd, 1940, just as I'd left it. The day warm and sunny and fogless, the sky a dependable blue, clouds forming shapes that seemed comfortingly familiar. Even better, Emma was there waiting for me, sitting on the edge of the mound, casting stones into the bog. About time, she cried, jumping to her feet. Come on, everyone's waiting for you. They are? Yes, she said with an impatient eye roll, taking my hand and pulling me after her. I sparked with excitement. not only at her touch, but at the thought of the day that lay ahead, full of endless possibility. Though in a million superficial ways it would be identical to the day before, the same breeze would blow and the same tree limbs would fall, my experience of it would be new. So would the peculiar children's. They were the gods of the strange little heaven, and I was their guest. We dashed across the bog and through the forest as if late for an appointment. When we reached the house, Emma led me around to the backyard, where a small wooden stage had been erected. Kids were bustling in and out of the house, carrying props, buttoning up suit jackets, and zipping into sequin dresses. Warming up was a little orchestra made up of just an accordion, a battered trombone, and a musical saw that Horace played with a bow. "What's this?" I asked Emma. "Are you guys putting on a play?" "You'll see," she said. "Who's in it?" "You'll see." "What's it about?" She pinched me. A whistle blew and everyone ran to claim seats in a row of folding chairs that faced the stage. Emma and I sat down just as the curtain opened, revealing a straw boater hat floating atop a gaudy red and white striped suit. It was only when I heard a voice that I realized that, of course, it was Millard. "Ladies and gentlemen," he crowed, "it gives me the utmost pleasure to present you a performance like no other in history, a show of such unrivaled daring, of such accomplished magicianship that you simply won't believe your eyes. Good citizens, I give you Miss Peregrine and her peculiar children." The audience burst into uproarious applause. Millard tipped his hat. "For our first illusion, I will produce Miss Peregrine herself." He ducked behind the curtain and emerged a moment later, a folded sheet draped over one arm and a peregrine falcon perched on the other. He nodded to the orchestra, which lurched into a kind of wheezing carnival music. Emma elbowed me. "Watch this," she whispered. Millard set the falcon down and held the sheet in front, screening the bird from the audience. He began counting backward. 3, 2, 1. And on one, I heard the unmistakable flap of wings and then saw Miss Peregrine's head, her human head, pop up from behind the sheet to even more uproarious applause. Her hair was mussed and I could only see her from the shoulders up. She seemed to be naked beneath the sheet. Apparently, when you change into a bird, your clothes don't go along for the ride. Taking the edges of the sheet, she wrapped it chastely around herself. "Mr. Portman," she said, peering down at me from the stage, "I'm so happy you've returned. This is a little exhibition we used to tour around the continent back in the halcyon days. I thought you might find it instructive." And then she swept off stage in a flourish, heading into the house to retrieve her clothes. One after another, the peculiar children came out of the audience and took the stage, each with an act of their own. Millard removed his tuxedo so that he was completely invisible and juggled glass bottles. Olive removed her leaden shoes and performed a gravity-defying gymnastics routine on a set of parallel bars. Emma made fire, swallowed it, and then blew it out again without burning herself. I applauded until I thought my hands would blister. When Emma returned to her seat, I turned to her and said, "I don't understand. You perform this for people?" "Of course," she replied. "Normal people?" "Of course, normal people. Why would peculiars pay to see things they can do themselves?" "But wouldn't this, blow your cover?" She chuckled. "Nobody suspected a thing," she said. "People come to sideshows to see stunts and tricks and what all, and as far as anybody knew, that's exactly what we showed them." "So you were hiding in plain sight?" "Used to be the way most peculiars made a living," she said. "And no one ever caught on?" "Once in a while, we get some knobhead backstage asking nosy questions, which is why there'd always be a strong arm on hand to toss them out on their bums. Speak of the devil, here she is now." Up on stage, a mannish-looking girl was dragging a boulder the size of a small refrigerator out from behind the curtain. "She may not be the sharpest tool in the woodshed," Emma whispered, "but she's got a massive heart, and she'd go to the grave for her mates. We're thick as thieves, Bronwyn and me." Someone had passed around a stack of promotional cards Miss Peregrine had used to advertise their act. It reached me with Bronwyn's card on top. In her picture, she stood barefoot, challenging the camera with an icy stare, and blazoned across the back was "The Amazing Strong Girl of Swansea." "Why isn't she lifting a boulder if that's what she does on stage?" I asked. "She was in a foul mood because the bird made her dress like a lady for the picture. She refused to lift so much as a hat box." "Looks like she drew the line at wearing shoes, too." "She generally does." Picture time. There's Bronwyn. Bronwyn finished dragging the rock to the middle of the stage, and for an awkward moment she just stared into the crowd as if someone had told her to pause for dramatic effect. Then she bent down and gripped the rock between her big hands and slowly lifted it above her head. Everyone clapped and hooted. The kids' enthusiasm undimmed, though they'd probably seen her do this trick 1,000 times. It was almost like being at a pep rally for a school I didn't attend. Bronwyn yawned and walked off with the boulder tucked under one arm. Then the wild-haired girl took the stage. Her name was Fiona, Emma said. She stood facing the crowd behind a planter filled with dirt, her hands raised above it like a conductor. The orchestra began to play Flight of the Bumblebee, as well as they could anyway, and Fiona pawed the air above the planter, her face contorted in effort and concentration. As the song crescendoed, a row of daisies poked up from the dirt and unfurled towards her hands. It was like one of those fast-motion videos of plants blooming, except she seemed to be reeling the flowers up from their loamy bed by invisible strings. The kids ate it up, jumping out of their seats to cheer her on. Emma flipped through the stack of postcards to Fiona's. "Her card's my favorite," she said. "We worked for days on her costume." I looked at it. She was dressed like a beggar girl and stood holding a chicken. "What's she supposed to be?" I asked. "A homeless farmer?" Emma pinched me. "She's meant to look natural, like a savage-type person. Jilla the Jungle, we called her." "Is she really from the jungle?" "She's from Ireland." "Are there a lot of chickens in the jungle?" She pinched me again. While we'd been whispering, Hugh had joined Fiona on stage. He stood with his mouth open, letting bees fly out to pollinate the flowers that Fiona had grown. Like a weird mating ritual. "What else does Fiona grow, besides bushes and flowers?" "All these vegetables," Emma said, gesturing to the garden beds in the yard. "And trees, sometimes." "Really? Whole trees?" She sorted through the postcards again. "Sometimes we'll play Jill and the Beanstalk. Someone will grab hold of one of the saplings at the edge of the woods, and we'll see how high Fiona can get it to go while we're riding it." She arrived at the photo she'd been hunting for and tapped it with her finger. "That was the record," she said proudly. 20 meters. "You guys get pretty bored around here, huh?" She moved to pinch me again, but I blocked her hand. I'm no expert on girls, but when one tries to pinch you 4 times, I'm pretty sure that's flirting. Here's Fiona, guys. Yeah? Go investigate. And here's the beanstalk foot, while my dog is barking uproariously. I'm pretty sure it's Dave. Is it Swiftblood? What is happening? Quite possibly. There were a few more acts after Fiona and Hugh left the stage, but by then the kids were getting antsy, and soon we dispersed to spend the rest of the day in summery bliss, lazing in the sun, sipping limeade, playing croquet, tending to gardens that, thanks to Fiona, hardly needed tending, discussing our options for lunch. I wanted to ask Miss Peregrine more about my grandfather, a subject I avoided with Emma, who turned morose at any mention of his name. But the headmistress had gone to conduct a lesson in the study for the younger kids. It seemed like I had plenty of time, though, and the languid pace and midday heat sapped my will to do anything more taxing than wander the grounds in dreamy amazement. After a decadent lunch of goose sandwiches and chocolate pudding, Emma began to agitate for the older kids to go swimming. "Out of the question," Millard groaned, the top button of his pants popping open. "I'm stuffed like a Christmas turkey." We were sprawled on velvet chairs around the sitting room, full to bursting. Bronwyn lay curled with her head between two pillows. "I'd sink straight to the bottom," came her muffled reply. But Emma persisted. After 10 minutes of wheedling, she'd roused Hugh, Fiona, and Horace from their naps and challenged Bronwyn, who apparently could not forgo a competition of any kind, to a swimming race. Upon seeing us all trooping out of the house, Millard scolded us for trying to leave him behind. The best spot for swimming was by the harbor, but getting there meant walking straight through town. "What about those crazy drunks who think I'm a German spy?" I said. "I don't feel like getting chased with clubs today." "You twit," Emma said. "That was yesterday. They won't remember a thing." "Just hang a towel round you so they don't see your, future clothes," said Horace. I had on jeans and a t-shirt, my usual outfit, and Horace wore his customary black suit. He seemed to be of the Miss Peregrine school of dress, morbidly ultra-formal, no matter the occasion. His photograph was among those I'd found in the smashed trunk, and in an attempt to dress up for it, he'd gone completely overboard. Top hat, cane, monocle, the works. "You're right," I said, cocking an eyebrow at Horace. "I wouldn't want anyone to think I was dressed weird." "If it's my waistcoat you're referring to," he replied haughtily, "yes, I admit I am a follower of fashion." The others snickered. "Go ahead. Have a laugh at old Horace's expense. Call me a dandy, if you will, but just because the villagers won't remember what you wear doesn't give you license to dress like a vagabond." And with that, he set about straightening his lapels, which only made the kids laugh harder. In a snit, he pointed an accusing finger at my clothes. "As for him, God help us if that's all our wardrobes have to look forward to." Here's Horace. When the laughter had died down, I pulled Emma aside and whispered, "What exactly is it that makes Horace peculiar? Aside from his clothes, I mean." "He has prophetic dreams. Gets these great nightmares every so often, which have a disturbing tendency to come true." "How often? A lot?" "Ask him yourself." But Horace was in no mood to entertain my questions, so I filed it away for another time. As we came into town, I wrapped a towel around my waist and hung another from my shoulders. Though it wasn't exactly prophecy, Horace was right about one thing. Nobody recognized me. Walking down the main path, we got a few odd looks, but no one bothered us. We even passed the fat man who'd made such a stink over me in the bar. He was stuffing a pipe outside the tobacconist's shop and blathering on about politics to a woman who was barely listening. I couldn't help staring at him as we passed. He stared back without even a flicker of recognition. It was like someone had hit reset on the whole town. I kept noticing things I'd seen the day before. The same wagon rushing wildly down the path, its back wheel fishtailing in the gravel, the same woman lining up outside the well, a man tarring the bottom of a rowboat, no further along in his task than he'd been 24 hours ago. I almost expected to see my doppelganger sprinting across town, pursued by a mob, but I guess things don't work that way. "You guys must know a lot about what goes on around here," I said, "like yesterday, with the planes and that cart." "It's Millard who knows everything," said Hugh. "It's true," said Millard. "In fact, I'm in the midst of compiling the world's first complete account of one day in the life of a town, as experienced by everyone in it. Every action, every conversation, every sound made by each of the 159 human and 332 animal residents of Cairnholm. Minute by minute, sun up to sun down." "That's incredible," I said. "I can't help but agree," he replied. "In just 27 years, I've already observed half the animals and nearly all the humans." My mouth fell open. 27 years? "He spent 3 years on pigs alone," Hugh said. "That's all day, every day, for 3 years, taking notes on pigs. Can you imagine? This one dropped a load of arse biscuits. That one said oink oink and then went to sleep in its own filth." "Notes are absolutely essential to the process," Millard explained patiently. "But I can understand your jealousy, Hugh. It promises to be a work unprecedented in the history of academic scholarship." "Oh, don't cock your nose," Emma said. "It'll also be unprecedented in the history of dull things. It'll be the dullest thing ever written." Rather than responding, Millard began pointing things out just before they happened. "Miss Higgins is about to have a coughing fit," he'd say, and then a woman in the street would cough and hack until she was red in the face. Or, "Presently, a fisherman will lament the difficulty of plying his trade during wartime," and then a man leaning on a cart filled with nets would turn to another man and say, "There's so many damn U-boats in the water now, and it ain't even safe for a bloke to go tickle his own lines." I was duly impressed and told him so. "I'm glad someone appreciates my work," he replied. We walked along the bustling harbor until the docks ran out, and then followed the rocky shore towards the headlands to a sandy cove. We boys stripped down to our underwear, all except Horace, who would remove only his shoes and tie, while the girls disappeared to change into modest, old-school bathing suits. Then we all swam. Bronwyn and Emma raced each other while the rest of us paddled around. Once we'd exhausted ourselves, we climbed onto the sand and napped. When the sun was too hot, we fell back into the water, and when the chilly sea made us shiver, we crawled out again, and so it went until our shadows began to lengthen across the cove. We got to talking. They had a million questions for me, and far away from Miss Peregrine, I could answer them frankly. What was my world like? What did people eat, drink, wear? When would sickness and death be overcome by science? They lived in splendor, but were starving for new faces and new stories. I told them whatever I could, racking my brain for nuggets of 20th century history from Mrs. Johnston's class, the moon landing, the Berlin Wall, Vietnam, but they were hardly comprehensive. It was my time's technology and standard of living that amazed them most. Our houses were air-conditioned. They'd heard of televisions but had never seen one, and were shocked to learn that my family had a talking picture box in almost every room. Air travel was as common and affordable to us as train travel was to them. Our army fought with remote-controlled drones. We carried telephone computers that fit in our pockets, and even though mine didn't work here, nothing electronic seemed to, I pulled it out just to show them its sleek, mirrored enclosure. It was edging towards sunset when we finally started back. Emma stuck to me like glue, the back of her hand brushing mine as we walked. Passing an apple tree on the outskirts of town, she stopped to pick one, but even on tiptoes, the lowest fruit was out of reach, so I did what any gentleman would do and gave her a boost, wrapping my arms around her waist and trying not to groan as I lifted, her white arm outstretched, wet hair glinting in the sun. When I let her down, she gave me a little kiss on the cheek and handed me the apple. "Here," she said, "you earned it." "The apple or the kiss?" She laughed and ran off to catch up with the others. I didn't know what to call it, what was happening between us, but I liked it. It felt silly and fragile and good. I put the apple in my pocket and ran after her. When we came to the bog and I said I had to go home, she pretended to pout. "At least let me escort you," she said, so we waved goodbye to the others and crossed over to the cairn, me doing my best to memorize the placement of her feet as we went. When we got there, I said, "Come with me to the other side a minute." "I shouldn't. I've got to get back, or the bird will suspect us." "Suspect us of what?" She smiled coyly. "Of something." "Something." "She's always on the lookout for something," she said, laughing. I changed tactics. "Then why don't you come see me tomorrow instead?" "See you? Over there?" "Why not? Miss Peregrine won't be around to watch us. You could even meet my dad. We won't tell him who you are, obviously. And then maybe he'll ease up a little about where I'm going and what I'm doing all the time. Me hanging out with a hot girl, that's like his fondest dad dream wish." I thought she might smile at the hot girl thing, but instead she turned serious. "The bird only allows us to go over for a few minutes at a time, just to keep the loop open, you know." "So tell her that's what you're doing." She sighed. "I want to. I do. But it's a bad idea." "She's got you on a pretty short leash." "You don't know what you're talking about," she said with a scowl. "And thanks for comparing me to a dog. That was brilliant." I wondered how we'd gone from flirting to fighting so quickly. I didn't mean it like that." "It's not that I wouldn't like to," she said. "I just can't." "Okay, I'll make you a deal. Forget coming for the whole day. Just come over for a minute, right now." "1 minute? What can we do in 1 minute?" I grinned. "You'd be surprised." "Tell me," she said, pushing me. "Take your picture." Her smile disappeared. "I'm not exactly at my most fetching," she said doubtfully. "No, you're great, really." "Just 1 minute? Promise?" I let her go into the cairn first. When we came out again, the world was misty and cold, though thankfully the rain had stopped. I pulled out my phone and was happy to see that my theory was right. On this side of the loop, electronic things worked fine. "Where's your camera?" she said, shivering. "Let's get this over with." I held up the phone and took her picture. She just shook her head as if nothing about my bizarre world could surprise her anymore. Then she dodged away, and I had to chase her around the cairn, both of us laughing. Emma ducking out of view only to pop up again and vamp for the camera. A minute later, I'd taken so many pictures that my phone had nearly run out of memory. Emma ran to the mouth of the cairn and blew me an air kiss. "See you tomorrow, future boy." I lifted my hand to wave goodbye, and she ducked into the stone tunnel. I skipped back to town, freezing and wet and grinning like an idiot. I was still blocks away from the pub when I heard a strange sound rising above the hum of generators. Someone calling my name. Following the voice, I found my father standing in the street in a soggy sweater, breath pluming before him like muffler exhaust on a cold morning. "Jacob, I've been looking for you. You said be back by dinner, so here I am. Forget dinner, come with me. My father never skipped dinner. Something was most definitely amiss. What's going on? I'll explain on the way, he said, marching me toward the pub. Then he got a good look at me. You're all wet, he exclaimed. For God's sake, did you lose your other jacket too? And why is your face red? You look sunburned. Crap. A whole afternoon at the beach without sunblock. I'm all hot from running, I said, though the skin on my arms was pimpled from cold. What's happening? Did someone die or what? No, he said. Well, sort of. Some sheep. What's that got to do with us? They think it was kids who did it, like a vandalism thing. They who? The sheep police? The farmers, he said. They've interrogated everyone under the age of 20. Naturally, they're pretty interested in where you've been all day. My stomach sank. I didn't exactly have a watertight cover story, and I raced to think of one as we approached the priest hole. Outside the pub, a small crowd was gathered around a quorum of very pissed-off-looking sheep farmers. One wore muddy coveralls and leaned threateningly on a pitchfork. Another had Worm by the collar. Worm was dressed in neon track pants and a shirt that read, I love it when they call me Big Papa. He'd been crying, snot bubbling on his upper lip. A third farmer, rail-thin and wearing a knit cap, pointed at me as we approached. Here he is, he called out. Where you been off to, son? Dad patted me on the back. Tell them, he said confidently. I tried to sound like I had nothing to hide. I was exploring the other side of the island. The big house? Knit Cap looked confused. Which big house? That wonky old heap in the forest, said Pitchfork. Only a certified idiot would set foot in there. Place is witched and a death trap to boot. Knit Cap squinted at me. In the big house with who? Nobody, I said, and saw Dad give me a funny look. Bollocks, I think you was with this one, said the man holding Worm. I never killed any sheep, cried Worm. Shut up, the man roared. Jake, said my dad, what about your friends? Ah, crap, Dad. Knit Cap turned and spat. Why, you little liar, I had to belt you right here in front of God and everybody. You stay away from him, my father said, doing his best stern dad voice. Knit Cap swore and took a step towards him, and he and my dad squared off. Before either could throw a punch, a familiar voice said, Hang on, Dennis, we'll get this sorted, and Martin stepped out of the crowd to wedge himself between them. Just start by telling us whatever your boy told you, he said to my father. Dad glared at me. He said he was going to see friends on the other side. What friends? Pitchfork demanded. I could see this was only going to get uglier unless I did something drastic. Obviously, I couldn't tell them about the children, not that they'd believe me anyway, so instead, I took a calculated risk. It wasn't anybody, I said, dropping my eyes in feigned shame. They're imaginary. What did he say? He said his friends were imaginary, my dad repeated, sounding worried. The farmers exchanged baffled glances. See? Worm said, a flicker of hope on his face. Kid's a bloody psycho. It had to be him. I never touched them, I said, though no one was really listening. It weren't the American, said the farmer who had Worm. He gave Worm's shirt a wrench. This one here, he's got a history. A few years back I watched him kick a lamb down a cliffside. Wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. After he'd done it, I asked him why. To see if it could fly, he says. He's a sickie, all right. People muttered in disgust. Worm looked uncomfortable, but didn't dispute the story. "Where's this fishmonger and mate?" said Pitchfork. "If this one was in on it, you can bet the other one was, too." Someone said they'd seen Dillon by the harbor, and a posse was dispatched to collect him. "What about a wolf or a wild dog?" my dad said. "My father was killed by dogs." "Only dogs on Cairnholm are sheepdogs," replied Nick Cat. "And it ain't exactly in a sheepdog's nature to go about killing sheep. I wished my father would give it up and leave while the leaving was good, but he was on the case like Sherlock Holmes." "Just how much sheep are we talking about?" he asked. "5, replied the fourth farmer, a short, sour-faced man who hadn't spoken until then. "All mine. Killed, right in their pen. Poor devils never even had a chance to run." "5 sheep. How much blood do you think is in 5 sheep?" "A right tubful, I shouldn't wonder," said Pitchfork. So wouldn't whoever did this be covered in it?" The farmers looked at one another. They looked at me and then at Worm. Then they shrugged and scratched their heads. "Reckon it could have been foxes," said Nick Cap. "A whole pack of foxes, maybe," said Pitchfork doubtfully, "if the island's even got that many." "I still say the cuts are too clean," said the one holding Worm. "Had to have been done with a knife." "I just don't believe it," my dad replied. "Then come see for yourself," said Nick Cap. So as the crowd began to disperse, a small group of us followed the farmers out to the scene of the crime. We trudged over a low rise, through a nearby field, to a little brown shed with a rectangular animal pen beyond it. We approached tentatively and peeked through the fence slats. The violence inside was almost cartoonish, like the work of some mad impressionist who painted only in red. The tramped grass was bathed in blood, as were the pen's weathered post and the stiff white bodies of the sheep themselves, flung about in attitudes of sheepish agony. One had tried to climb the fence and got its spindly legs caught between the slats. It hung before me at an odd angle, clam-shelled open from throat to crotch, as if it had been unzipped. I had to turn away. Others muttered and shook their heads, and someone let out a low whistle. Worm gagged and began to cry, which was seen as a tacit admission of guilt. The criminal who couldn't face his own crime, he was led away to be locked in Martin's museum in what used to be the sacristy and was now the island's makeshift jail cell, until he could be remanded to police on the mainland. We left the farmer to ponder his slain sheep and went back to town, plodding across wet hills in the slate-gray dusk. Back in the room, I knew I was in for a stern dad talking to, so I did my best to disarm him before he could start in on me. "I lied to you, Dad, and I'm sorry." "Yeah?" he said sarcastically, trading his wet sweater for a dry one. "That's big of you. Now which lie are we talking about? I can hardly keep track." "The one about meeting friends. There aren't any other kids on the island. I made it up because I didn't want you to worry about me being alone over there." "Well, I do worry, even if your doctor tells me not to." "I know you do." "So what about these imaginary friends? Does Golan know about this?" I shook my head. "That was a lie, too. I just had to get those guys off my back." Dad folded his arms, not sure what to believe. "Really?" "Better to have them think I'm a little eccentric than a sheep killer, right?" I took a seat at the table. Dad looked down at me for a long moment, and I wasn't sure if he trusted me or not. Then he went to the sink and splashed water on his face. When he'd toweled off and turned around again, he seemed to have decided it was a lot less trouble to trust me. "You sure we don't need to call Dr. Golan again?" he asked. "Have a nice long talk?" "If you want to, but I'm okay." "This is exactly why I didn't want you hanging out with those rapper guys," he said, because he needed to close with something sufficiently parental for it to count as a proper talking to. You were right about them, Dad, I said, though secretly I couldn't believe either of them was capable of it. Worm and Dylan talked tough, but that was all. Dad sat down across from me. He looked tired. I'd still like to know how someone manages to get a sunburn on a day like this. Right, the sunburn. Guess I'm pretty sensitive, I said. You can say that again, he said dryly. He let me go, and I went to take a shower and thought about Emma. Then I brushed my teeth and thought about Emma, and washed my face and thought about Emma. And after that I went to my room and took the apple she'd given me out of my pocket and set it on the nightstand. And then, as if to reassure myself she still existed, I got out my phone and looked through the pictures of her I'd taken that afternoon. I was still looking when I heard my father go to bed in the next room, and still looking when the Jennies kicked off and my lamp went out. And when there was no light anywhere but her face on my little screen, I lay there in the dark, still looking. And that's the end of chapter 7. Yeah, this bitch sucks at making up stories. So bad at it. Yeah, like if you're a teenager and you don't know how to come up with a convincing enough lie about what you're doing it wrong. Now, this is intermission we're going to take a short break, and I am going to pause this for a moment because I want to say hi to Dave because he is home now. So hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Dave is home. I'm sure you heard. That's what the dog was barking at. So I had to wait until we finished the chapter so I could go say hi. Also, I got a new pillow, apparently. Dave's mom made me a pillow. It's a nice pillow. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I haven't gotten to see him in a few days. Yeah, I haven't gotten to see him in a couple days, so, like, I wanted to say hi. Anyway, thank you for bearing with me through that for a few minutes. And I get to drink water. Low-key, I think me and Dad are going to play Binding of Isaac again tonight, and I think I'm going to do better. I should do better. I was kind of ashamed of the way I performed last week, and, but I will be really upset if I don't do well again tonight, because I've been slam dunking this for days. I mean, right before, at the end of last night, I had gotten all the way to past the cathedral. So, like, I beat heaven and got all the way to some place called the chest, and then beat Dead Isaac. And then I've gotten, and you can see the symbols on it, so you know I'm not lying. But, like, there's different symbols for the endings that you've gotten, and various characters have, like, 3 separate, and I've beaten Mom's heart with every single character except Judas. So if I don't do better tonight, I'm gonna be mad. Yes, bring your Switch, please. Yes, okay, good. It'll be a Binding of Isaac party. No, actually, that sounds terrible. A Binding of Isaac party would be terrible. It would smell so bad. No, but yes, so found out I'm horrible at it. Don't, trust me, you get better, because you get better with practice. It's one of those things that it's like a muscle you need to constantly exercise for. Is my mic fucked up? Did I fuck up my mic? Am I lagging? Is the connection lagging? Because it does. My connection is is like yellow, has a little light. Green means good, yellow means mid. So it could just be my connection. Okay. Sorry. Weird noise against my door, and I couldn't tell if it was Dave or Pond. 2. Are we ready to go back into it? Ah, damn. Is it? What? What's going on?
You have a USB outlet?
Do I have a USB outlet?
Yeah.
Not one currently open. I can unplug my phone.
I'm just showing you this.
But
They're like little color lights.
oh, neato.
And they have adhesive pad on the back. What? On.
Lady Aoife says hi.
Sorry to interrupt everyone.
No, it's okay. We're still in intermission. I'm not reading right now.
I was listening for your reading.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Reading.
No.
These are actually really bright, so I'm not pointing them right at you, but
yeah, those are very bright. I don't know how those would appear on camera. I might blind people with those.
Well, I mean, you could.
But I could put them above.
Yeah, pointing at a wall or something.
Or put them up. Those would be good backlighting for stuff.
And they have adhesive pads.
Are they just all primary colors?
Well, that's what it looks like. Mom said the girls didn't want them, and I don't see any control or buttons. So
Okay.
I think they just stay these colors.
Lady Aoife says nobody minds that you interrupted. Diana also says hi.
feel like I'm supposed to know everybody, but I don't. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh,
Dave's like, I don't know all the people.
there, and you can figure it out.
All right.
I'll leave Pawn in here.
Yeah, there's some lights.
Oh.
They are very bright. They're not
Also-
plugged in right now, but
Included in Kevin's things was a box of knives. So, I'll give you a couple knives.
yay.
The utility knives.
For the record, we're not. Knives is fine to say on live, right?
No, like the character from Trigun.
Like the character from Trigun, not like.
Not the, the steak thing.
Yeah, no.
Not the eating utensil.
You're fine.
Come on, Pawn.
Knives emoji in the chat.
Yeah.
Pond.
You
Pond,
staying
you gonna
here?
stay in here?
Probably not, because I'm home. Come on.
Yeah, she was clawing the shit out of my leg earlier.
Why'd you do it? Good kitty. Let's do two. One on.
Ray also says hi.
Ray!
That's the one. That's the one who. That's the one who wanted to get Pawn the DDR mat.
I mean, I can print one. Should just sit on it though. Mom gave me a bucket of cake. There was a cake that she shoved into an ice cream bucket that was empty. It's funfetti.
There's a. It really didn't matter what flavor you said the cake was. You stopped me with.
So if you
My
see
mom
me eating out of a
gave
bucket,
me cake in a bucket, and I just thought that was an odd ventricle to put. That was an odd.
sentence.
Yes, bucket of cake.
When you see me eating out of a bucket, that's
Bucket
what
of
I mean,
cake.
It's cake. It's not ice cream
It's not ice cream.
because I'm lactose intolerant.
I would hope that if I did, actually, you know what, I would be pretty concerned if I walk into a room and I saw you just eating out of an ice cream bucket. I actually would be pretty alarmed because
Well, I'm
I'd be
telling
like,
you ahead of time, 'cause
Dave,
you're gonna see it.
right, because you're gonna see it. I'm
Gonna see
eating
me
that
from a
cake.
bucket. I have no shame. I will eat from a bucket.
I will eat from a bucket. Got it. Okay.
All right. Later.
Cake in a bucket. All right, good to know. Sorry, I haven't talked to him in a few days, so apart from texting him. Me too, Dave. I'm gonna tell him you said that later. Just never would have thought of it, but then again, Dave's family is super weird. They do just weird stuff. Putting things in places that you wouldn't expect. Their house doesn't look like you would expect an old veteran's house to look. It's crazy in there. Anyway, so sorry for the derailment there. We can get back into the book now, if you all want. Unless you want to delve deeper into this cake bucket scenario. Am I still laggy? It's book time.
This is for your used needles.
Oh, never mind. What? Is this a little tray?
Yeah, it's for your used needles. It's for your sharps.
Where did you get this?
Mom gave it to me for this purpose.
For it specifically.
It was a doll. It was a
It's
doll.
a little.
Toy. It's got wheels.
It's got wheels.
It's for your used needles. I hope you enjoy it.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna have to call your mom. No, I do. It's just really funny. I didn't.
You can even paint it if you don't like that teal color. But I think it works.
Yeah, no, it does. It looks like a little recycling bin.
Yeah. And then when you're done, you just empty it into something and throw it out.
Nice.
So there'll be no question what it is. It's garbage. What do you think's in here? What's so small? What, garbage has to be the same size?
He just keeps coming in here, giving me weird stuff, talking about weird stuff. I love it. Put all my needles in here. Put that over there for right now. I have to call my mother-in-law. That's great. How do I get a Dave? Okay. You know how we were talking about cons earlier? Funnily enough, that's how I met Dave. So I suppose one good thing came out of going to a con. I was going to a con, and I was supposed to be going with someone else, but we had a falling out, and I ended up needing another person to stay in this hotel room with me. And I didn't know anybody. I don't have a lot of friends. So at the time, I had a coworker who was like, oh yeah, I heard about that. I really wanted to go, and then I didn't get to go because this, and this. And I was like, can you afford to go in on a hotel room if it was like the two of us? And she was like, I'll do you one better. How about we split it 4 ways and we bring my boyfriend and his friend? And I was like, a little crowded, but okay. Otherwise, I've wasted pre-reg at a con that I can no longer attend, and I can't get refunded for the hotel room that I already purchased. So I was like, you can even just pay me back over time as long as I eventually get the money, because I need at least a little bit, because otherwise my account's going to be overdrawn, and to just cancel it, there's a cancellation fee. So her boyfriend's friend was Dave. And that's how it happened. There were 2 beds, but obviously my coworker this does sound like a fan fiction now that you think about it. He was even like, you can just take the bed, I'll sleep in the bathtub. And I was like, you don't gotta do all that. So it did kind of end up like that. Anyway, but... And then Dave had gone through a pretty rough breakup, and so had I. And so we were just both kind of like, you know anybody else here? No? Okay, well, let's hang out together. And we liked a lot of the same shows. And obviously we both liked anime because we were both there. And and then we kept talking. And that's how you get a Dave. But that, I'll go more into that some other time. I gotta read you a bedtime story, and it's getting late. And some people gotta go. And we have 28 pages to read, so put a meme in pictures for Dave. Who's ready to dive back into this? I think we can get through it. I'm not sure. I might have to read a little faster than I normally do. But there's 9 pictures in here. 2. Okay. Chapter 8. Hoping to duck another lecture, I got up early and set out before Dad was awake. I slipped a note under his door and went to grab Emma's apple, but it wasn't on my nightstand where I'd left it. A thorough search of the floor uncovered a lot of dust bunnies and one leathery thing the size of a golf ball. I was starting to wonder if someone had swiped it when I realized that the leathery thing was the apple. At some point during the night, it had gone profoundly bad, spoiling like I've never seen fruit spoil. It looked as though it had spent a year locked in a food dehydrator. When I tried to pick it up, it crumbled in my hand like a clump of soil. Puzzled, I shrugged it off and went out. It was pissing rain, but I soon left gray skies behind for the reliable sun of the loop. This time, however, there were no pretty girls waiting for me on the other side of the cairn, or anyone, for that matter. I tried not to be too disappointed, but I was, a little. As soon as I got to the house, I started looking for Emma, but Miss Peregrine intercepted me before I had even made it past the front hall. "A word, Mr. Portman," she said, and led me into the privacy of the kitchen, still fragrant from the rich breakfast I'd missed. I felt like I'd been summoned to the principal's office. Miss Peregrine propped herself against the giant cooking range. "Are you enjoying your time with us?" she said. I told her I was, very much. "That's good," she replied, and then her smile vanished. "I understand you had a pleasant afternoon with some of my wards yesterday, and a lively discussion as well." "It was great. They're all really nice." I was trying to keep things light, but I could tell she was winding me up for something. "Tell me," she said, "how would you describe the nature of your discussion?" I tried to remember. "I don't know. We talked about lots of things. How things are here, how they are where I'm from." "Where you're from?" "Right. And do you think it's wise to discuss events in the future with children from the past?" "Children? Is that really how you think of them?" I regretted saying this even as the words were passing my lips. "It is how they regard themselves as well," she said testily. "What would you call them?" Given her mood, it wasn't a subtlety I was prepared to argue. "Children, I guess." "Indeed. Now, as I was saying," she said, emphasizing her words with little cleaver chops of her hand on the range, "do you think it's wise to discuss the future with children from the past?" I decided to go out on a limb. "No." "Ah, but apparently you do. I know this because last night at dinner we were treated by Hugh to a fascinating disquisition on the wonders of 21st century telecommunications technology." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Did you know that when you send a letter in the 21st century, it can be received almost instantaneously?" "I think you're talking about email." "Well, Hugh knew all about it." "I don't understand," I said. "Is that a problem?" She unleaned herself from the range and took a limping step towards me. Even though she was a full foot shorter than I was, she still managed to be intimidating. "As an Imbrin, it is my sworn duty to keep those children safe, and above all that means keeping them here, in the loop, on this island." "Okay, yours is a world they can never be part of, Mr. Portman. So what's the use in filling their heads with grand talk about the exotic wonders of the future? Now you've got half the children begging for a jet airplane trip to America, and the other half dreaming of the day when they can own a telephone computer like yours." I'm sorry, I didn't realize. This is their home. I've tried to make it as fine a place as I could, but the plain fact is they cannot leave, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't make them want to." "But why can't they?" She narrowed her eyes at me for a moment and then shook her head. "Forgive me, I continue to underestimate the breadth of your ignorance. Miss Peregrine, who seemed to be constitutionally incapable of idleness, took a saucepan from the stovetop and began scouring it with a steel brush. I wondered if she was ignoring my question or simply weighing how best to dumb down the answer. When the pan was clean, she clapped it back on the stove and said, "They cannot linger in your world, Mr. Portman, because in a short time they will grow old and die." "What do you mean, die?" "I'm not certain how I can be more direct. They'll die, Jacob." She spoke tersely, as if wishing to put the topic behind us as quickly as possible. "It may appear to you that we found a way to cheat death, but it's an illusion. If the children loiter too long on your side of the loop, all the many years from which they have abstained will descend upon them at once, in a matter of hours." I pictured a person shriveling up and crumbling to dust like the apple on my nightstand. "That's awful," I said with a shudder. "The few instances of it that I've had the misfortune to witness are among the worst memories of my life, and let me assure you I've lived long enough to see some truly dreadful things." "Then it's happened before?" "To a young girl under my own care, regrettably, a number of years ago. Her name was Charlotte. It was the first and last time I ever took a trip to visit one of my sister inbreds. In that brief time, Charlotte managed to evade the other children who were minding her and wander out of the loop. It was 1985 or 86 at that time, I believe. Charlotte was roving blithely about the village by herself when she was discovered by a constable. When she couldn't explain who she was or where she'd come from, not to his liking anyhow, the poor girl was shipped off to a child welfare agency on the mainland. It was 2 days before I could reach her, and by that time she'd aged 35 years. "I think I've seen her picture," I said. "A grown woman in little girl's clothes?" Miss Peregrine nodded somberly. "She never was the same after that. Not right in the head." "What happened to her?" "She lives with Miss Nightjar now. Miss Nightjar and Miss Thrush take all the hard cases." Here's a picture. "But it's not as if they're confined to the island, is it?" I asked. "Couldn't they still leave now, from 1940? "Yes, and begin aging again as normal. But to what end? To be caught up in a ferocious war? To encounter people who fear and misunderstand them? And there are other dangers as well. It's best to stay here." "What other dangers?" Her face clouded as if she regretted having brought it up. "Nothing you need concern yourself with. Not yet, at least." With that, she shooed me outside. I asked again what she meant by other dangers, but she shut the screen door in my face. "Enjoy the morning," she chirped, forcing a smile. "Go find Miss Bloom. I'm sure she's dying to see you." And she disappeared into the house. I wandered into the yard, wondering how I was supposed to get the image of that withered apple out of my head. Before long, though, I did. It's not that I forgot, it just stopped bothering me. It was the strangest thing. Resuming my mission to find Emma, I learned from Hugh that she was on a supply run to the village, so I settled under a shade tree to wait. Within 5 minutes I was half asleep in the grass, smiling like a dope, wondering serenely what might be on the menu for lunch. It was as if just being here had some kind of narcotic effect on me, like the loop itself was a drug, a mood enhancer and a sedative combined, and if I stayed too long, I'd never want to leave. If that were true, I thought, it would explain a lot of things, like how people could live the same day over and over for decades without losing their minds. Yes, it was beautiful and life was good, but if every day were exactly alike, and if the kids really couldn't leave, as Miss Peregrine had said, then this place wasn't just a heaven, but a kind of prison, too. It was just so hypnotizingly pleasant that it might take a person years to notice, and by then it would be too late. Leaving would be too dangerous. So it's not even a decision, really. You stay. It's only later, years later, that you begin to wonder what might have happened if you hadn't. I must have dozed off because around mid-morning I awoke to something nudging my foot. I cracked an eye to discover a little humanoid figure trying to hide inside my shoe, but it had gotten tangled in the laces. It was stiff-limbed and awkward, half a hubcap tall, dressed in army fatigues. I watched it struggle to free itself for a moment and then go rigid, a wind-up toy on its last wind. I untied my shoe to extricate it and then turned it over, looking for the wind-up key, but I couldn't find one. Up close, it was a strange, crude-looking thing, its head a stump of rounded clay, its face a smeared thumbprint. "Bring him here," someone called from across the yard. A boy sat waving at me from a tree stump at the edge of the woods. Lacking any pressing engagements, I picked up the clay soldier and walked over. Arranged around the boy was a whole menagerie of wind-up men, staggering around like damaged robots. As I drew near, the one in my hands jerked to life again, squirming as if he were trying to get away. I put it with the others and wiped shed clay on my pants. "I'm Enoch," the boy said. "You must be him." "I guess I am," I replied. "Sorry if he bothered you," he said, herding the one I'd returned back to the others. "They get ideas, see? Ain't properly trained yet. Only made 'em last week." He spoke with a slight Cockney accent. Cadaverous black circles ringed his eyes like a raccoon, and his overalls, the same ones he'd worn in pictures I'd seen, were streaked with clay and dirt. Except for his pudgy face, he might have been a chimney sweep out of Oliver Twist. "You made these?" I asked, impressed. "How?" "They're homunculi," he replied. "Sometimes I put doll heads on them, but this time I was in a hurry and didn't bother." "What's a homunculi?" "More than one homunculus." He said it like it was something any idiot would know. Some people think it's homunculuses, but I think that sounds daft, don't you? "Definitely." Enoch. The clay soldier I'd returned began wandering again. With his foot, Enoch nudged it back towards the group. They seemed to be going haywire, colliding with one another like excited atoms. "Fight, you Nancies!" he commanded, which is when I realized they weren't simply bumping into one another, but hitting and kicking. The errant clay man wasn't interested in fighting, however, and when he began to totter away once more, Enoch snatched him up and snapped off his legs. "That's what happens to deserters in my army," he cried, and tossed the crippled figure into the grass, where it writhed grotesquely as the others fell upon it. "Do you treat all your toys that way?" "Why?" he said. "Do you feel sorry for them?" "I don't know. Should I?" "No, they wouldn't be alive at all if it wasn't for me." I laughed, and Enoch scowled at me. "What's so funny?" "You made a joke." "You're a bit thick, aren't you?" he said. "Look here." He grabbed one of the soldiers and stripped off its clothes. Then, with both hands, he cracked it down the middle and removed from its sticky chest a tiny, convulsing heart. The soldier instantly went limp. Enoch held the heart between his thumb and forefinger for me to see. "It's from a mouse," he explained. "That's what I can do. Take the life of one thing and give it to another. Either clay like this or something that used to be alive but ain't anymore." He tucked the stilled heart into his overalls. "Soon as I figure out how to train him up proper, I'll have a whole army like this, only they'll be massive." And he raised an arm up above over his head to show me just how massive. "What can you do?" he said. "Me? Nothing, really. I mean, nothing special like you." "Pity," he replied. "Are you going to come live with us anyway?" He didn't say it like he wanted me to exactly. He just seemed curious. "I don't know," I said. "I hadn't thought about it." That was a lie, of course. I had thought about it, but mostly in a daydreaming sort of way. He looked at me suspiciously. But don't you want to? I don't know yet. Narrowing his eyes, he nodded slowly, as if he'd just figured me out. Then he leaned in and said under his breath, Emma told you about Raid the Village, didn't she? Raid the what? He looked away. No, it's nothing. Just a game some of us play. I got the distinct feeling I was being set up. She didn't tell me, I said. Enoch scooted towards me on the stump. I bet she didn't, he said. I bet there's a lot of things about this place she wouldn't like you to know. Oh yeah? Why? 'Cause then you'll see it's not as great as everybody wants you to think, and you won't stay. What kinds of things? I asked. Can't tell, he said, flashing me a devilish smile. I could get in big trouble. Whatever, I said. You brought it up. I stood to go. Wait, he cried, grabbing my sleeve. Why should I if you're not going to tell me anything? He rubbed his chin judiciously. It's true, I ain't allowed to say anything, but I reckon I couldn't stop you if you was to go upstairs and have a look in the room at the end of the hall. Why? I said. What's in there? My friend Victor. He wants to meet you. Go up and have a chat. Fine, I said. I will. I started toward the house and then heard Enoch whistle. He mimed running a hand along the top of a door. The key, he mouthed. What do I need a key for if someone's in there? He turned away, pretending not to hear. I sauntered into the house and up the stairs like I had business there and didn't care who knew it. Reaching the second floor unobserved, I crept to the room at the end of the hall and tried the door. It was locked. I knocked, but there was no answer. Glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one was watching, I ran my hand along the top of the door frame. Sure enough, I found a key. I unlocked the door and slipped inside. It was like any other bedroom in the house. There was a dresser, a wardrobe, a vase of flowers on a nightstand. Late morning sun shone through the drawn curtains of the color mustard, throwing such yellow light everywhere that the whole room seemed encased in amber. Only then did I notice a young man lying in the bed, his eyes closed and mouth slightly open, half hidden behind a lace curtain. I froze, afraid I'd wake him. I recognized him from Miss Peregrine's album, though I hadn't seen him at meals or around the house, and we'd never been introduced. In the picture, he'd been asleep in the bed, just as he was now. Had he been quarantined? Infected with some sleeping sickness? Was Enoch trying to get me sick, too? Hello? I whispered. Are you awake? He didn't move. I put a hand on his arm and shook him gently. His head lolled to one side. Here's a picture. Another picture. Then something terrible occurred to me. To test a theory, I held my hand in front of his mouth. I couldn't feel his breath. My finger brushed his lips, which were cold as ice. Shocked, I pulled my hand away. Then I heard footsteps and spun around to see Bronwyn in the doorway. You ain't supposed to be in here, she hissed. He's dead, I said. Bronwyn's eyes went to the boy and her face puckered. That's Victor. Suddenly it came to me where I'd seen his face. He was the boy lifting the boulder in my grandfather's pictures. Victor was Bronwyn's brother. There was no telling how long he might have been dead. As long as the loop kept looping, it could be 50 years and only look like a day. What happened to him? I asked. Maybe I'll wake old Victor up, came a voice from behind us. And you can ask him yourself. It was Enoch. He came in and shut the door. Bronwyn beamed at him through welling tears. Would you wake him? Oh, please, Enoch. I shouldn't, he said. I'm running low on hearts as it is, and it takes a right lot of them to rise up a human being, even for just a minute. Bronwyn crossed to the dead boy and began to smooth his hair with her fingers. Please, she begged. It's been ages since we talked to Victor. Well, I do have some cow hearts pickling in the basement, he said, pretending to consider it. But I hate to use inferior ingredients. Fresh is always better. Bronwyn began to cry in earnest. One of her tears fell onto the boy's jacket, and she hurried to wipe it away with her sleeve. Don't get so choked, Enoch said. You know I can't stand it. Anyway, it's cruel waking Victor. He likes it where he is. And where's that? I asked. Who knows, but whenever we rouse him for chat, he seems in a dreadful hurry to get back. What's cruel is you toying with Bronwyn like that and tricking me, I said. And if Victor's dead, why don't you just bury him? Bronwyn flashed me a look of utter derision. Then we'd never get to see him, she said. That stings, mate, said Enoch. I only mentioned coming up here because I wanted you to have all the facts laid. I'm on your side. Yeah? What are the facts then? How did Victor die? Bronwyn looked up. He got killed by... Ow! She squealed as Enoch pinched the back of her arm. Hush, he cried. It ain't for you to tell. This is ridiculous, I said. If neither of you will tell me, I'll just go ask Miss Peregrine. Enoch took a quick stride towards me, eyes wide. Oh no, you mustn't do that. Yeah? Why mustn't I? The bird don't like us talking about Victor, he said. It's why she wears black all the time, you know. Anyway, she can't find out we've been in here. She'll hang us all by her pinky toes. As if on cue, we heard the unmistakable sound of Miss Peregrine limping up the stairs. Bronwyn turned white and dashed past me out the door, but before Enoch could escape, I blocked his path. Out of the way, he hissed. Tell me what happened to Victor. I can't. Then tell me about Raid the Village. I can't tell you that neither. He tried to shove past me again, but when he realized he couldn't, he gave up. All right, just shut the door and I'll whisper it to you. I closed it just as Miss Peregrine was reaching the landing. We stood with our ears pressed to the door for a moment, listening for a sign that we'd been spotted. The headmistress's footsteps came halfway down the hall towards us, then stopped. Another door creaked open, then shut. She's gone into her room, Enoch whispered. So? I said. Raid the village. Looking like he was sorry that he'd brought it up, he motioned me away from the door. I followed, leaning down so he could whisper into my ear. Like I said, it's a game we play. It works just like the name says. You mean you actually raid the village? Smash it up, chase people around, take what we like, burn things down. It's all a good laugh. But that's terrible. We gotta practice our skills somehow, don't we? In case we ever need to defend ourselves. Otherwise, we get rusty. Plus, there's rules. We ain't allowed to kill anybody, just scare them up a little bit. And if someone does get hurt, well, they're back right as rain the next day and don't remember nothing about it. Does Emma play too? Nah, she's like you. Says it's evil. Well, it is. He rolled his eyes. You two deserve each other. What's that supposed to mean? He rose up to his full 5'4" height and poked a finger into my chest. It means you better not get all high and mighty with me, mate, because if we didn't raid the damn village once in a while, most of this lot would have gone off their heads ages ago. He went to the door and put his hand on the knob and then turned back to face me. And if you think we're wicked, wait till you see them. Them who? What the hell is everyone talking about? He held up one finger to shush me, then went out. I was alone again. My eyes were drawn to the body on the bed. What happened to you, Victor? Maybe he'd gone crazy and killed himself, I thought. Gotten so sick of this cheerful but futureless eternity that he guzzled rat poison or taken a dive off a cliff. Or maybe it was them. Those other dangers Miss Peregrine had alluded to. I stepped into the hall and had just started toward the stairs when I heard Miss Peregrine's voice behind a half-closed door. I dove into the nearest room and stayed hidden until she limped past me and down the stairs. Then I noticed a pair of boots at the front of a crisply made bed. Emma's boots. I was in her bedroom. Along one wall was a chest of drawers and a mirror. On the other, a writing desk with a chair tucked underneath. It was the room of a neat girl with nothing to hide. Or so it seemed, until I found a hat box just inside the closet. It was tied up with string, and in grease pencil across the front was written, "Private. Correspondence of Emma Bloom, do not open." It was like waving red underwear at a bull. I sat down with the box in my lap and untied the string. It was packed with 100 more letters, all from my grandfather. My heart picked up speed. This was exactly the kind of gold mine I'd hoped to find in the old ruined house. Sure, I felt bad about snooping, but if people here insisted on keeping things secret, well, I'd just have to find out stuff for myself. I wanted to read them all, but was afraid someone would walk in on me, so I thumbed through them quickly to get an overview. Many were dated from the early 1940s, during Grandpa Portman's time in the Army. A random sampling revealed them to be long and sappy, full of declarations of his love and awkward descriptions of Emma's beauty and my grandfather's then broken English. "You are pretty like flower, have good smell also, may I pick?" In one, he'd enclosed a picture of himself posing atop a bomb with a cigarette dangling from his lips. Over time, his letters grew shorter and less frequent. By the 1950s, there was maybe one a year. The last was dated April 1963. Inside the envelope was no letter, just a few pictures. 2 were of Emma, snapshots she'd sent him that he'd sent back. The first was from early on, a jokey pose to answer his, of her peeling potatoes and pretending to smoke one of Miss Peregrine's pipes. The next one was sadder, and I imagined she'd sent it after my grandfather had failed to write for a while. The last photo, the last thing he'd ever sent her, in fact, showed my grandfather at middle age, holding a little girl. There's a bunch of pictures in a row. Hold up. Here's the first one. I had to stare at that last picture for a minute before I realized who the little girl was. It was my Aunt Susie, maybe 4 years old then. After that, there were no more letters. I wondered how much longer Emma had continued writing to my grandfather without receiving a reply, and what he'd done with her letters. Thrown them out? Stashed them somewhere? Surely it had to be one of those letters that my father and aunt had found as kids that made them think their father was a liar and a cheat. How wrong they were. I heard a throat clear behind me and turned to see Emma glaring from the doorway. I scrambled to gather the letters, my face flushing, but it was too late. I was caught. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be in here. I'm bloody well aware of that," she said. But by all means, don't let me interrupt your reading. She stamped over to her chest of drawers, yanked one out, and threw it clattering to the floor. While you're at it, why don't you have a look through my knickers, too? I'm really, really sorry, I repeated. I never do things like this. Oh, I shouldn't wonder. Too busy peeping in ladies' windows, I suppose? She towered over me, shaking with anger, while I struggled to fit all the letters back into the box. There's a system, just give him here. You're mucking everything up. She sat down and pushed me aside, emptying the box onto the floor and sorting the letters into piles with the speed of a postal worker. Thinking it best to shut my mouth, I watched meekly while she worked. When she calmed a little, she said, So you want to know about Abe and me, is that it? Because you could have just asked. I didn't want to pry. Rather a moot point now, wouldn't you say? I guess. So, what is it you want to know? I thought about it. I wasn't really sure where to start. Just, what happened? All right then, we'll skip all the nice bits and go right to the end. It's simple, really. He left. He said he loved me and he promised to come back one day, but he never did. But he had to go, didn't he? To fight? Had to. I don't know. He said he wouldn't be able to live with himself if he sat out the war while his people were being hunted and killed. Said it was his duty. I suppose duty meant more to him than I did. Anyhow, I waited, and worried through that whole bloody war, thinking every letter that came was a death notice. Then, when the war was finally over, he said he couldn't possibly come back. Said he'd go stark raving. Said he'd learned how to defend himself in the army and he damn well didn't need a nanny like the bird to look after him anymore. He was going to America to make a home for us, and then he'd send for me. So I waited more, and I waited so long that if I'd actually gone to be with him, I would have been 40 years old. By then, he'd taken up with some commoner, and that, as they say, was that. I'm sorry, I had no idea. It's an old story, I don't drag it out much anymore. You blame him for being stuck here, I said. She gave me a sharp look. Who says I'm stuck? Then she sighed. No, I don't blame him. Just miss him is all. Still? Every day. She finished sorting the letters. There you have it, she said, clapping the lid on them. The entire history of my love life in a dusty box in the closet. She drew a deep breath and then shut her eyes and pinched the bridge of her nose. For a moment I could almost see the old woman hiding behind her smooth features. My grandfather had trampled her poor pining heart, and the wound was still raw, even these many years later. I thought of putting my arm around her, but something stopped me. Here was this beautiful, funny, fascinating girl who, miracle of miracles, really seemed to like me, but now I understood that it wasn't me she liked. She was heartbroken for someone else, and I was merely a stand-in for my grandfather. That's enough to give anyone pause. I don't care how horny you are. I know guys who were grossed out by the idea of dating a friend's ex. By that standard, dating your grandfather's ex would practically be incest. The next thing I knew, Emma's hand was on my arm. Then her head was on my shoulder, and I could feel her chin tracking slowly towards my face. This was kiss me body language, if there ever was such a thing. In a minute, our faces would be level, and I'd have to choose between locking lips or seriously offending her by pulling away, and I'd already offended her once. It's not that I didn't want to. More than anything, I did, but the idea of kissing her 2 feet from a box of obsessively well-preserved love letters from my grandfather made me feel weird and nervous. Then her cheek was against mine, and I knew it was now or never, so I said the first mood-killing thing that popped into my head. Is there something going on between you and Enoch? She pulled away instantly, looking at me like I'd suggest we dine on puppies. What? No! Where on earth did you get a twisted idea like that? From him. He sounds kind of bitter when he talks about you, and I get the distinct impression he doesn't want me around, like I'm horning in on his game or something. Her eyes kept going wider. First of all, he doesn't have any game to horn in on. I can assure you of that. He's a jealous fool and a liar. Is he? Is he which? A liar. She narrowed her eyes. Why? What kind of nonsense has he been spouting? Emma, what happened to Victor? She looked shocked. Then, shaking her head, she muttered, Damn that selfish boy. There's something no one here is telling me, and I want to know what it is. I can't, she said. That's all I've been hearing. I can't talk about the future. You can't talk about the past. Miss Peregrine has all of us tied up in knots. My grandfather's last wish was for me to come here and find out the truth. Doesn't that mean anything? She took my hand and brought it into her lap and looked down at it. She seemed to be searching for the right words. You're right, she said finally. There is something. Tell me. Not here, she whispered. Tonight. We arranged to meet late that night when my dad and Miss Peregrine would be asleep. Emma insisted it was the only way, because the walls had ears and it was impossible to slip off together during the day without arousing suspicion. To complete the illusion that we had nothing to hide, we spent the rest of the afternoon hanging out in the yard in full view of everyone, and when the sun began to set, I walked back to the bog alone. It was another rainy evening in the 21st century, and by the time I reached the pub, I was thankful just to be somewhere dry. I found my dad alone, nursing a beer at a table, so I pulled up a chair and began fabricating stories about my day while toweling off my face with napkins. Something I was beginning to discover about lying. The more I did it, the easier it got. He was hardly even listening. Huh, he'd say. That's interesting. And then his gaze would drift off and he'd take another swig of beer. What's up with you? I said. Are you still pissed at me? No, it's nothing like that. He was about to explain, but waved it away. Nah, it's stupid. Dad, come on. It's just this guy who showed up a couple days ago. Another birder. Someone you know? He shook his head. Never seen him before. At first, I thought he was just some part-time enthusiast yahoo, but he keeps coming back to the same sites, the same nesting grounds, taking notes. He definitely knows what he's doing, and then today I saw him with a banding cage and a pair of predators, so I know he's a pro. Predators? Binoculars, real serious glass. He wadded up his paper placemat and re-smoothed it 3 times now, a nervous habit. It's just that I thought I had the scoop on this bird population, you know, and I really wanted this book to be something special. And then this asshole comes along. Jacob, this no good son of a bitch. He laughed. Thank you, son, that'll do. It will be special, I said reassuringly. He shrugged. I don't know. Hope so. But he didn't sound too certain. I knew exactly what was about to happen. It was part of this pathetic cycle my dad was caught in. He'd get really passionate about some project, talk about it nonstop for months, then inevitably some tiny problem would crop up and throw sand in the gears, and instead of dealing with it, he'd let it completely overwhelm him. The next thing you know, the project would be off, and he'd be on to the next one, and the cycle would start again. He got discouraged too easily. It was the reason why he had a dozen unfinished manuscripts locked in his desk, and why the bird store he tried to open with Aunt Susie never got off the ground, and why he had a bachelor's degree in Asian languages but had never been to Asia. He was 46 years old and still trying to find himself, still trying to prove he didn't need my mother's money. What he really needed was a pep talk that I didn't feel at all qualified to give, so instead I tried to subtly change the subject. Where's this interloper staying? I asked. I thought we had the only rooms in town. I assume he's camping, my dad replied. In this weather? It's kind of a hardcore ornithology geek thing. Roughing it gets you closer to your subjects, both physically and psychologically. Achievement through adversity and all that. I laughed. Then why aren't you out there? I said, then immediately wished I hadn't. Same reason my book probably won't happen. There's always someone more dedicated than I am. I shifted awkwardly in my chair. I didn't mean it like that. What I meant was, shh. My dad stiffened, glancing furtively toward the door. Look quick, but don't make it obvious. He just walked in. I shielded my face with the menu and peeked over the top. A scruffy-looking bearded guy stood in the doorway, stamping water from his boots. He wore a rain hat and dark glasses and what appeared to be several jackets layered on top of one another, which made him look both fat and vaguely transient. I love the homeless Santa Claus thing he's got going, I whispered. Not an easy look to pull off. Very next season. He ignored me. The man bellied up to the bar, and conversations around him quieted a notch or two. Kev asked what he'd like, and the man said something, and Kev disappeared into the kitchen. He stared straight ahead as he waited, and a minute later, Kev came back and handed the guy a doggy bag. He took it, dropped some bills on the bar, and went to the door. Before leaving, he turned to slowly scan the room. Then, after a long moment, he left. "What do you order?" my dad shouted when the door had swung shut. "Couple of steaks," Kev replied. "Said he didn't care they were cooked, so he got 'em 10 seconds aside rare. No complaints." People began to mutter and speculate, the volume of their conversations rising again. "Raw steak?" I said to my father. "You gotta admit, even for an ornithologist, that's a little weird." "Maybe he's a raw foodist," Dad replied. "Yeah, right. Or maybe he got tired of feasting on the blood of lambs." Dad rolled his eyes. "The man obviously has a camp stove. He probably just prefers to cook out in the open." "In the rain? And why are you defending him anyway? I thought he was your arch nemesis." "I don't expect you to understand," he said. "But it would be nice if he didn't make fun of me." And he stood up to go to the bar. Am I freezing? Audio's been fine? Okay. A few hours later, my dad stumbled upstairs, reeking of alcohol, and flopped into his bed. He was asleep instantly, ripping out monster snores. I grabbed a coat and set out to meet Emma. No sneaking necessary. The streets were deserted and so quiet you could almost hear the dew fall. Clouds stretched thinly across the sky, with just enough moonlight glowing through to light my way. As I crested the ridge, a prickly feeling crept over me, and I looked around to see a man watching me from a distant outcropping. He had his hands raised to his face and his elbows splayed out like he was looking through binoculars. The first thing I thought was, "Damn it, I'm caught," assuming it was one of the sheep farmers out on watch, playing detective. But if so, why wasn't he coming over to confront me? Instead, he just stood and watched, and I watched back. Finally, I figured, if I'm caught, I'm caught, because whether I went back now or kept going, one way or another word of my late-night excursion would circle back to my dad. So I raised my arm in a one-fingered salute and descended into the chilly fog. Coming out of the cairn, it looked like the clouds had been peeled back and the moon pumped up like a big yellow balloon, so bright I almost had to squint. A few minutes later, Emma came wading through the bog, apologizing and talking a mile a minute. "Sorry I'm late. It took ages for everyone to get to bed. Then on my way out, I stumbled over Hugh and Fiona snogging each other's faces off in the garden. But don't worry, they promised not to tell if I didn't." She threw her arms around my neck. "I missed you," she said. "Sorry about before." "I am too," I said, patting her back awkwardly. "So let's talk." She pulled away. "Not here. There's a better place. A special place." "I don't know." She took my hand. "Don't be that way. You'll adore it, I promise. And when we get there, I'll tell you everything." I was pretty certain it was a plot to get me to make out with her, and had I been any older or wiser, or one of those guys for whom makeout sessions with hot girls were so frequent as to be of no consequence, I might have had the emotional and hormonal fortitude to demand that we have our talk right then and there. But I was none of those things. Besides, there was the way she beamed at me, smiling with her whole self, and how a coy gesture like tucking her hair back could make me want to follow her, help her, do anything she asked. I was hopelessly outmatched. I'll go, but I'm not going to kiss her, I told myself. I repeated it like a mantra as she led me across the bog. Do not kiss. Do not kiss. We headed for town, but veered off toward the rocky bench that looked out onto the lighthouse, picking our way down the steep path to the sand. Reaching the water's edge, she told me to wait and ran off to retrieve something. I stood watching the lighthouse beam wheel around and wash over everything. A million seabirds sleeping in the pitted cliffs, giant rocks exposed by the low tide, a rotted skiff drowning in the sand. When Emma came back, I saw that she had changed into her swimsuit and was holding a pair of snorkel masks. "Oh no," I said. "No way." "You might want to strip to your skivvies," she said, looking doubtfully at my jeans and coat. "Your outfit's all wrong for swimming." "That's because I'm not going swimming. I agreed to sneak out and meet you in the middle of the night, fine. But just to talk, not to—" "We will talk," she insisted. "Underwater. In my boxers?" She kicked sand at me and started to walk away, but then turned and came back. "I'm not going to attack you if that's what you're in a knit about. Don't flatter yourself." "I'm not." "Then quit mucking about and take off those silly trousers." And then she did attack me, wrestling me to the ground and struggling to remove my belt with one hand while rubbing sand in my face with the other. "Ugh!" I cried, spitting out sand. "Dirty fighter!" I had no choice but to return the favor with a fistful of my own, and pretty soon things devolved into a no-holds-barred sand fight, and when it was over, we were both laughing and trying in vain to brush it all out of our hair. "Well, now you need a bath, so you might as well get in the damn water." "Okay, fine." The water was shockingly cold at first. Not a great situation, vis-a-vis wearing only boxer shorts, but I got used to the temperature pretty quickly. We waded out past the rocks where, lashed to a depth marker, was a canoe. We clambered into it and Emma handed me an oar and we both started paddling, headed towards the lighthouse. The night was warm and the sea calm, and for a few minutes I lost myself in the pleasant rhythm of her oars slapping water. About 100 yards from the lighthouse, Emma stopped paddling and stepped overboard. To my amazement, she didn't slip under the waves, but stood up, submerged only to her knees. "Are you on a sandbar or something?" I asked. "Nope." She reached into the canoe, pulled out a little anchor, and dropped it. It fell about 3 feet before stopping with a metallic clang, and a moment later the lighthouse beam swept past, and I saw the hull of a ship stretching beneath us on all sides. A shipwreck! "Come on," she said. "We're nearly there, and bring your mask." She started walking across the wrecked boat's hull. I stepped out gingerly and followed. To anyone watching from shore, it would have looked like we were walking on water. "How big is this thing anyway?" I asked. "Massive. It's an Allied warship. Hit a friendly mine and sank right here." She stopped. "Look away from the lighthouse for a minute," she said. "Let your eyes get used to the dark." So we stood facing the shore and waited as small waves slapped at our thighs. "All right, now follow me and take a giant breath." She walked over to the dark hole in the ship's hull, a door from the look of it, then sat down on the edge and plunged in. This is insane, I thought, and then I strapped on the mask she'd given me and plunged in after her. I peered into the enveloping blackness between my feet to see Emma pulling herself even farther down by the rungs of a ladder. I grabbed the top of it and followed, descending hand over hand, until it stopped at a metal floor where she was waiting. We seemed to be in some sort of cargo hold, though it was too dark to tell much more than that. I tapped her elbow and pointed to my mouth. "I need to breathe." She patted my arm condescendingly and reached for a length of plastic tubing that hung nearby. It was connected to a pipe that ran up the ladder to the surface. She put the tube in her mouth and blew, her cheeks puffing out with the effort, then took a breath from it and passed it to me. I sucked in a welcome lungful of air. We were 20 feet underwater inside an old shipwreck, and we were breathing. Emma pointed at a doorway in front of us, little more than a black hole in the murk. I shook my head. I don't want to. But she took my hand as though I were a frightened toddler and led me towards it, bringing the tube along. We drifted through the doorway into total darkness. For a while we just hung there, passing the breathing tube between us. There was no sound but our breaths bubbling up and obscure thuds from deep inside the ship, pieces of the broken hull knocking in the current. If I had shut my eyes, it wouldn't have been any darker. We were like astronauts floating in a starless universe. But then a baffling and magnificent thing happened. One by one, the stars came out. Here and there, a green flash in the dark. I thought I was hallucinating, but then more lit up, and still more, until a whole constellation surged around us like a million green twinkling stars, lighting our bodies, reflecting in our masks. Emma held out a hand and flicked her wrist, but rather than producing a ball of fire, her hand glowed a scintillating blue. The green stars coalesced around it, flashing and whirling, echoing her movements like a school of fish, which I realized is just what they were. Mesmerized, I lost all track of time. We stayed there for what seemed like hours, though it was probably only a few minutes. Then I felt Emma nudge me, and we retreated through the doorway and up the ladder, and when we broke the surface again, the first thing I saw was the great bold stripe of the Milky Way painted across the heavens, and it occurred to me that together the fish and the stars formed a complete system, coincident parts of some ancient and mysterious whole. We pulled ourselves onto the hull and took off our masks. For a while we just sat like that, half submerged, thighs touching, speechless. "What were those?" I said finally. "We call them flashlight fish." "I've never seen one before." "Most people never do," she said. "They hide." "They're beautiful." "Yes." "And peculiar." Emma smiled. "They are that too." And then her hand crept onto my knee, and I let it stay there because it felt warm and good in the cool water. I listened for the voice in my head telling me not to kiss her, but it had gone silent. And then we were kissing. The profoundness of our lips touching and our tongues pressing, and my hand cupping her perfect white cheek barred any thoughts of right or wrong or any memory of why I had followed her there in the first place. We were kissing, and then suddenly it was over. And as she pulled away, I followed her face with mine. She put a hand on my chest, at once gentle and firm. "I need to breathe, dummy." I laughed. Okay." She took my hands and looked at me, and I looked back. It was almost more intense than kissing, the just looking. And then she said, "You should stay." "Stay," I repeated. "Here, with us." The reality of her words filtered through, and the tingly magic of what had just happened between us numbed out. I want to, but I don't think I can." "Why not?" I considered the idea. The sun, the feast, the friends, and the sameness, the perfect, identical days. You can get sick of anything if you have too much of it, like all the petty luxuries my mother bought and quickly grew bored with. But Emma. There was Emma. Maybe it wasn't so strange what we could have. Maybe I could stay for a while and love her and then go home. But no. By the time I wanted to leave, it would be too late. She was a siren. I had to be strong. "It's him you want, not me. I can't be him for you." She looked away, stung. "That isn't why you should stay. You belong here, Jacob." "I don't. I'm not like you." "Yes, you are," she insisted. "I'm not. I'm common, just like my grandfather." Emma shook her head. Is that really what you think? If I could do something spectacular like you, don't you think I would have noticed by now? I'm not meant to tell you this, she said, but common people can't pass through time loops. I considered this for a moment, but couldn't make sense of it. There's nothing peculiar about me. I'm the most average person you'll ever meet. I doubt that very much, she replied. Abe had a rare and peculiar talent, something almost no one else could do. And then she met my eyes and said, he could see the monsters. And that's the end of the chapter. It's so late tonight. Man, I have kept you guys up so long. Insomniac must be nodding off over there. Should we do cat facts real quick so all the people who need to go to bed early can go to bed? Because I didn't even know if you all were still here. Because it's a little later than it normally is. Should I go ahead and do it? Oh, well, thank you, Chaco. Cat facts. All right. I'm pretty sure we haven't done Jungle Cat yet. So, yes. Jungle Cat. Okay. We haven't, right? Yeah. Okay. Doubting my own memory of things. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Cat facts for the walk. Okay. I'm pretty sure we haven't done Jungle Cat, so I'm going to do Jungle Cat unless someone corrects me here in the next few seconds. Lady Aoife thinks we have, Insomniac doesn't remember. Okay. We're 1 for 1. This isn't helping. This is why I should have already downloaded. We did, yes. Okay, I was like certain that we had, but like I was like, last time we did, yeah, we have done it. It's been a while. Okay, we're gonna do leopard cat then. The leopard cat is a small, brilliantly marked wildcat that lives through Southeast and East Asia, from small portions of India and Bangladesh through much of China, the Indochinese and Malay peninsulas, and far into the Koreas and even Japan. Overall, the leopard cat is not considered endangered, but in a few of the countries where it lives, individual governments have enacted laws to protect it. The leopard cat lives in such different habitats across such a huge swath of the globe that there are many color variations. All leopard cats have some overall pattern of spots or spotty marks on a solid colored background, but they vary from discrete, fully formed rosettes, like a proper leopard, to streaky spots that cover just part of the body, like the face, legs, and tail, like fellow small wildcats. The Bengal domestic cat breed began as a hybrid between a leopard cat and a domestic cat, which was then fine-tuned to have a sleeker, silkier coat and more pronounced rosettes than most leopard cats. Northern leopard cat subgroups are shaggier and heavier to protect them from the cold. In China, leopard cats are thought to have been the first domesticated cats about 5,000 years ago, until they were supplanted by the established domesticated cats that came from the Middle East. And there's a cute little cat. Look at that little baby. So cute. So adorable. I love all the pictures. All the cats. Okay. Now all the people that gotta go. How long have I been a cosplayer? If you consider when I was younger, because I stopped cosplaying when I was younger, and I didn't pick it up again until a few years ago. And it took an extensive amount of therapy to get me back into cosplay. And I think I've been cosplaying for TikTok at least a year. At least a year? It's going on 2 years? I don't know, something like that. I know I've passed at least a year, but I started cosplaying for TikTok during the pandemic. So it was during the plague. 2 years. Really? It hasn't been that long. Okay. But I did cosplay when I was younger, and didn't get super treated well for it, so I stopped for a while. But I'm back at it now, and no one makes fun of me, so I'm cool with it. I was prepared for people to make fun of me too, which is the weird thing. And now I have people who just want to let me read to them once a week. Good night. Thank you for joining us. Oh, God. Sorry, I wasn't expecting the door to just thunk open.
I didn't know it was latched. Is Dad coming over?
Yes, Dad will be over shortly. We will be playing Binding of Isaac in there. Okay. If that's chill with you.
You should eat before you do this.
You know what?
My burger was impressive.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
Wait till you see yours.
I'll eat. I apparently have to go eat because I haven't eaten today.
Tell them what I got you.
I failed at nutrition. I got a burger in there. Dave brought a burger home and fried green tomatoes. So, which I haven't had in years. So, did you find a chess set? I don't understand what's happening right now. Oh, nice. That's a really nice chess set.
It's all acrylic. They will fall out, so be careful.
Yeah, that's why I'm just tilting it.
And then it's magnet.
Nice.
It's every bit of it's acrylic.
Can I flip this with the lid on it? Okay.
Yeah, it's magnetized.
Pond. Please don't knock over the...
So we're going to have to play sometime soon. No more white. We got rid of white. It's clear now.
We got rid of white. It's clear now.
Or black.
You could be clear or black. Completely translucent or completely opaque.
We got no time for white.
Nothing is white or black anymore. It's either opaque or translucent. There's no in between.
That's true. I can co-sign to that.
All right.
Eat your burger.
Dad'll be over here shortly. I'm being lambasted for not eating properly. I forget to eat when I'm by myself. I need someone to remind me to do it. And Dave's been gone, so I've been starving myself. I just realized I am hungry, in fact, and so I'm gonna go eat, I suppose. But if you're new here and you haven't been here before, I think I saw some new people, or at least a person that hasn't been in here in a while. And if you're still here, we will do this every Tuesday at 8. All the Tuesdays at 8 Central. So if you want to join us again, and if you want to follow along, you can go to the YouTube. It has all the recordings of all the other lives where I read, so you'll be all caught up. And I hope you'll join me next week at 8. So, I'm going to go eat now. Apparently. And I will see you all in a few minutes because I am going to go and stream Binding of Isaac on the Discord. So if you want to show up there, I'm gonna go die a bunch probably. So I'll see you then.